Hey guys, Elizabeth here with catalystcac. And I've been working in the residential construction accounting industry for a long time, helping residential construction companies streamline their financial operations. And I've noticed a few things about the contracts that are being signed with the homeowners and investors. First of all, either the residential construction company owner doesn't know what type of contract they are signing with their homeowner or investor, or this is more likely it. They don't realize that they are not executing their contract according to the details within their contract. And that's a problem. The second thing I've noticed is that a lot of residential construction company owners don't realize that they need to share the details of the contract with their financial ops coordinator. Now, the financial ops coordinator is the person who is in their office doing their daily financial operations, their accounts payable and accounts receivable, and keeping those cycles going. So if they don't know the details of the contracts that they've signed with the homeowners on these projects, it becomes very difficult to execute those details. So in this video, I want to talk about the different types of residential construction contracts and how it affects the workflow for your financial ops coordinator. All right, let's get to it. So we're going to talk about the 5 types of residential home construction contracts. We're going to talk about what parts of those contracts are important for your FinOps coordinator to know. And then we are going to talk about how the contract type with your homeowner investor affects the bookkeeping process. So why does it matter what type of contract you have? Well, different types of contracts have different types of terms. And the terms of the contract are what's going to clarify and determine the workflow process for your FinOps coordinator. It will also give them the opportunity to help you reduce risk just by implementing the terms of the contract. And then lastly, the terms of the contract will dictate what level of detail you need to expose to the other parties involved in the contract, like the homeowner. So what are those 5 types of contracts? First of all, we have the fixed price or the lump sum contract. This is the most risky contract for the GC. However, it has the possibility of being very lucrative as well. Before COVID, a lot of contracts were run on the fixed price type. This is where you sit down, the GC sits down with the homeowner and says, hey, I'll build your home for $5 million. They say, great. They sign on the dotted line, give you $5 million. You go build the home. And that's it. They don't really care how much it costs for them to build the home because they're paying you a fixed price. So you will see in the estimate, GCs will either pad each cost code in the estimate with the actual cost that they predict, the markup of overhead and profit, and then they will call what I call oh crap money, or it's padding the cost codes with a certain percentage of money just to make sure that they don't go over budget and lose on the project. They may also lump it all down in contingency, but I just like to call it oh crap money that they add to the estimate. So their estimates are generally going to be higher because they're absorbing more risk. The second type of contract is called the unit price. And this is similar to the fixed price, but it's where they break it down into fixed units and the homeowner pays unit by unit rather than as a whole. The third type of contract I'm going to skip over for a second. I'm going to talk about number 4 first. That's the cost plus contract. It's often also called an open book contract. And this is where the homeowner and the GC agree that they will pay the GC for the actual costs plus a markup of overhead and profit. This is less risky for the GC. However, it requires a higher level of detail exposure. In this type of contract, the homeowner has the right to see the actual costs it takes to build their project because the markup of overhead and profit is determined on the actual price. You can't plus what you don't cost, right? So that's the cost plus contract. I personally like it the most. Okay, so then let's go back to number 3, the cost plus with a guaranteed max price. So it's at number 3 because it is more risky than number 4. but it has a similar concept as cost plus. So the contract is ran as a cost plus contract. You have to show them the actual cost. You have that level of detail. However, the GC has guaranteed not to charge more than a max price. So the GC is shouldering a little bit more risk because they're saying if we go over budget for no reason at all, other than I just bid wrong, then you are not going to pay for it, homeowner. We are going to absorb that cost. However, in this type of contract, it's very important to have terms on how change orders will be handled, how selections will be handled, so that the GC doesn't end up losing on change orders that are done that put them way over the max price that to no fault of their own. The last one is time and material. This is the least risky, but you don't usually see this in home builds and larger residential construction contracts. But for those smaller ones, it's called time and material. And it is where the contractor will charge for the cost of the material plus direct labor hours. All right, so what are the important parts of the contract for the FinOps coordinator? You need to let your FinOps coordinator see the contract, know the contract, have access to the contract, and be able to refer back to the contract as they go through the project. Because if they know the terms of the contract, they can implement those terms and they can help reduce your risk. So they need to know what type of contract they have. They need to know what the payment agreement details are, and that's generally determined in what type of contract it is. Is this a cost plus contract that we are actually going to put the costs on the draw request and charge a % markup? Or is this a fixed price that we are just going to put one line item called construction draw for $300,000 with no backup at all? Or is this a progressively invoiced contract? So they need to know what type of contract they're dealing with, and they need to know what the payment agreement details are, because it's going to affect how they create their draw requests, how they cost their bills. It's going to affect their workflow. The next thing they need to know is what is the contractor fee, the builder fee, the O&P percentage. What is that percentage? It's going to be found on the contract that was an agreement between the GC and the homeowner. And then also, if you have internal labor that you use, what are the hourly rates that you are agreeing to charge the homeowner for? Are you charging your carpenter $60 an hour? Or are you charging them for $80 an hour? Do you have you broken out your internal labor into a carpenter, a field worker, a foreman, a project manager, and you're charging different rates? That FinOps coordinator needs to know so that she can apply the terms of the contract and maximize your profitability. So then the next thing they need to know are what are the special conditions statement for change orders, for variable considerations, selections, what happens when you're over budget. They need to know the fine print on the terms of the contract with regards to these specific situations that may or may not happen as the contract is fulfilled, so that they can implement those terms, so that if in the contract it states that change orders are invoiced immediately, then the FinOps coordinator needs to know that when a change order is executed, they need to send a draw immediately for that amount. Or is there a statement in there that says if we go over budget, we're only going to charge you half of the markup? So I had a contract that it was at 20%, but if they went over budget and there was no change order, then he was only going to charge 10% markup. That's very important to know so that we can implement those terms, so we do not expose the GC to more risk legally if we don't abide by the terms. If we're in breach of contract because we charge 20% when we should have charged 10, that's not good for you as a GC. So you need to let your FinOps coordinator see the contract and know what all the fine print terms are so that they can implement them. Then they also need to know what the warranty details are. So when they get those warranty calls, they know how to deal with them. And then the dated signed estimate. So at the end of the contract, you need to have your schedule of values dated and signed, because it becomes the source of truth for your internal and external budget. And the FinOps coordinator will want to take that budget and will need to put that up into Adaptive or whatever financial tracking software you are using, so that they can use that as a source of truth for all of your estimate versus actual reports, your draw schedules. Everything that comes for analysis afterwards will depend on that signed estimate. All right, so how does the contract type affect the bookkeeping process? So we're going to look at the accounts payable process and accounts receivable process specifically. So in the accounts payable process, it will matter how the bill is job costed. Will we mark this bill billable or will we not? If it's a fixed price contract, you are not going to mark the bill billable because we do not need to add the actual cost to the construction draw. If it is a cost plus contract, we are 100% marking that bill billable so that we can recover that unbilled cost to the homeowner and get our markup on it. So other than the billable question, we recommend that you follow the same exact detailed process in your accounts payable process, regardless of the contract type. So in a lot of ways, the accounts payable process is not changed depending on the contract type, but that one little billable box and whether it's checked or not is super extremely important depending on what type of contract you have. Okay, now the accounts receivable process. This one is affected a little bit more noticeably. So when they're creating their construction draws or their pay apps, whatever you want to call it, how are the costs accounted for in the invoice? If you are a lump sum, fixed price lump sum contract, then you can lump it all on one line item, or you can progressively invoice a percentage of each cost code. However you want to do it, you do not need to go actual cost by actual cost. So you have a lot more freedom in making sure in invoicing how much you invoice and when. However, like I said, we want to cost exactly the same so we still know exactly what our actual costs are, but we have a lot of freedom in the accounts receivable to present that draw however we want to. And then also for a lump sum contract, you do not need to attach all of the backup files. Now, I would have them, like I said, I would not change my tracking process. I would still use Adaptive, put the PDF to every single bill and give them a great presentation with a draw, but and have that ability to pull that backup if we need to. But you don't have to give that exposure to the homeowner on a lump sum contract. You have the freedom to just give them a one-page invoice that says construction draw, 300,000. There you go. Okay, so for a cost plus though, you will want to add every actual cost. So we will want to make sure they're marked billable. And then on the draw, we will want to make sure we add those costs that were marked billable, all those billable items to the draw, and then put a markup on every single line item that's there. That part is crucial. It's a lot more detailed. It seems like a lot more work, but if you have the right software and you have the right process, then it really isn't. And it's wonderful because you can give an extremely transparent, put together, amazing homeowner experience in giving them their draw package with their backup files, with a line item for every actual cost, so they know exactly what they're paying a markup on. But in the accounts receivable process, when you're creating the draw for a cost plus, you have to have every actual cost as a line item. You have to expose, you have to expose the detail of what that cost, what backs up that actual cost line item. So you need to give them every actual cost that's involved. And so knowing what type of contract you have is crucial when you're creating your accounts receivable. Okay, so let's look at how the contract type with the homeowner investor affects the reporting and our project management goals. So if you are cost plus, being under budget is not ideal because you cannot plus what you don't cost, right? So if you overestimate and you say it's going to cost $800,000 to build this house, but it's only $600,000, now you have actually lost a lot of overhead and profit percentage that you might have been banking on because you actually didn't bring in the costs. And so if you can see here, the line item that's yellow, the dumpsters, they estimated that it was going to be 9,000. They did a change order. They thought they were going to need an extra dump. So it would be 9,750. They only ended up spending 7,900. So there was 1,800 under budget. That's great for the homeowner. Not so great for the GC. The GC in a cost plus contract wants to be accurate, right? They don't want to be under, but they also don't want to be over, because they don't want to cause a lot of headaches for their homeowner. They want to give their homeowner a great customer experience. So they want to be as accurate as possible. So that also would include making sure that you record every change that happens on that contract so that the homeowner doesn't think that they're getting stiffed by being over budget in all these other areas. If they see that they caused a change order because they changed where they wanted their light fixture to be, or if the budget changes because their selection of materials was so far over what we estimated, we need to record those selection changes in the budget. We need to record those change orders so that it doesn't look like we are going over budget and we still give our homeowner a really great experience. However, cost plus, you don't want to be under budget, but you don't want to be over budget either for the homeowner. It is a little bit safer as far as your overhead and profit because you're still entitled to getting your markup on every overage that there is, unless your contract states otherwise, but it's still not ideal. If you are lump sum, being under budget is fine. It's great because that just means you just made more profit. But being over budget is awful for everybody. And so they will, so that, like I said, there's that oh crap money or the contingency that's often added, but to contracts. So the homeowner actually ends up spending more for the fixed price because the GC wants to make sure that they don't go over budget. I think that you can give a better homeowner experience by giving an accurate budget. But if you're over budget, that's really awful unless you have recorded your change orders. That's why a lump sum contract is especially crucial to make sure that you capture every change order and every selection. In case you haven't noticed the theme, it's super important to record your selections and change order changes and any variable consideration as much as possible because it will save on the homeowner experience. And in this case, for a lump sum contract, it will save profit fade from happening as well. All right. So what are the benefits of a cost plus contract? I want to tell you that if you go cost plus for the homeowner, they may be a little averse to this because they may feel like you're not going to stick to your budget. But having transparency in the pricing and having an actual cost attached to every single cost that's in the budget that they're paying on their draw is priceless. The GC can offer a more accurate price. So because you don't have to build in that contingency, that oh crap money into the price for all of the unknowns, you can actually give what you believe to be an accurate price for building their home. And then you can reduce the project time by like weeks or months because you can get started while a lot of the selections are unknown or undetermined. If you have a lump sum contract, you're going to try to get all the selections done before you sign that contract because you want to make sure that they're not going to pick something that's way over budget unless you have it accounted for as a clause in your contract. But with a cost plus, you can go ahead and get started because regardless of what the selections are that are made, they're going to be paying the same percentage. Why do we, as the FinOps coordinators, as the financial professionals, why do we like cost plus? We like cost plus because the actual cost to actual drawn comparisons mean all costs are accounted for and they're redeemed under the contract and you have no lost costs. And then the cost plus compels accurate job costing, and internal and external reporting is more accurate and more worthy of analysis and improvement. So you can bank on the analysis for a cost plus contract, and you can really focus on improving how you estimate your contracts down to accurate pricing with the cost plus contract analysis. And then the system is just so Loctite and the presentation is beautiful. It gives your homeowner an amazing experience. It's transparent and it reduces a lot of back and forth between the homeowner and the GC. And so if you need help implementing these solid bookkeeping workflows to maximize your contract, then I highly recommend and I invite you to please join our Chaos to Clarity project community. It is a school community, skool.com. Here is the URL here. Registration will open September 10th, but you can get on the wait list. And if you go to the website and you get on the wait list, you will be sent an email with a VIP exclusive discount to get into the group between September 10th and September 19th at an exclusive discount. It will also allow you to jump on board with our live construction bookkeepers boot camp that we are launching September 22nd through September 26th. So you join the community, you get the boot camp for free, you get all the other resources for free, and you get it at a VIP discount if you join the waitlist. So how do you do that? So you go to the URL, which is skool.com/the Chaos to Clarity project with hyphens in between each word /about. And that will bring you to this page right here. You click that button that says join group. You can look at this too. It has all sorts of information about what's in the group. There's a little video you can watch that walks you through it. And then when you want to join the group, if you do not have a school account already, it will ask you to create one. Go ahead and do that. It's free. And then once you're inside, you can discover all sorts of communities. There's all different types of topics out there. So you can join a bunch of school communities, join mine at least. And so once you join the school community or you sign in, if you have an account, it will prompt you to answer the questions. And I'm really looking forward to getting your answers on these because it will help direct the avenue, the path that we take in putting the training information and more resources and more webinars and more meetings and the information that we cover within the community on an ongoing basis. Then click join. It will put you on the VIP list. And there you go. You'll get an email with a discount. So I look forward to seeing you on the inside, and I look forward to helping you have the most clarity that you possibly can in your residential construction company finances.